All right, let's get started. So thank you for joining the Bureau of Reclamation, Washington State Department of Ecology, and the Jacobs Group for this public informational webinar regarding the Lower Snake River Water Supply Replacement Study. I'm Michael Coffey. I'm with the Bureau of Reclamation, and with me are Roland Springer with Reclamation, Tom Tebb with Ecology, Ron Feringer, and Cynthia Carlstead with the Jacobs Group. We will be your host for this meeting today. We completed an electronic meeting on June 25th, in addition to the one that we're hosting today. A presentation will be given that contains an overall view of the study and its intent. Following that, a question and answer session will be available for you all for any questions that you may have. To submit a question, please email me any questions you may have as you listen to the presentation. My email address is mcoffey@usbr.gov. That's mcoffey@usbr.gov. Thank you, Will, for dropping that into the chat, and hopefully you all can see that. So this session is not a time for comments. It really is about, answering your questions, helping you to understand exactly what this study is and what it is not. We will actually provide an email address at the end of the presentation where you may submit your comments, opinions, materials, or studies you feel that we should consider. The agencies have several subject matter experts available today to field those questions. If we do not have answers for you immediately, we will be happy to follow up with you at a later time. Additionally, we have a frequently asked questions on our website, and we will continue to populate that section. So I would encourage you to visit that site for updates pretty regularly. And we will provide the location of that website at the end of the meeting today. This webinar is being recorded and will be placed on the Lower Snake River Water Supply Replacement Study website at www.usbr.gov/pn/FCRPS/LSRWS.htm. And again, that website will be on the presentation. Your questions will be captured as part of the webinar record, and your participation acknowledges your consent to be included. For the convenience of webinar participants, the final slide in presentation, it contains, in addition to what I've already noted, it also contains contact information for our agency representatives. So I will now turn this meeting over to Cynthia Carlstead with the Jacobs Group. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cynthia Carlstead. I'm the outreach lead for the consultant team on the project. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of our agenda and speakers for the formal presentation today. We're going to start out providing some background on how this study came to be and an overview of both the federal and state commitments. Roland Springer will present the federal part of this. Roland is the Deputy Regional Director for Reclamation's Columbia Pacific Northwest region. And Tom Tebb will present the state portion. Tom is the Director of the State of Washington Department of Ecology, Office of Columbia River. Next, we'll present information about the study itself, contents, approach, key data sources, and the schedule. Ron Feringer of the Jacobs Engineering Group will lead this part of the presentation. Ron is the project manager for our consultant team. Finally, Roland will wrap up the formal presentation by covering opportunities and points for public engagement for the study. Then we'll have our question and answer period. As Michael said at the beginning, please email your questions to her at the email address listed there in the chat. That's mcoffey@usbr.gov. You can do that anytime during the presentation. Feel free to just ship those questions off to her as they occur to you during the presentation. During the question and answer period, Michael will read off the questions in the order received, and I'll direct them to the appropriate person on our team who can answer those questions. We won't be taking verbal questions or questions through the chat today, so please use that email to submit your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Roland, and if you could advance the slide, Will. And I think go ahead beyond that.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. Yes, I'll be discussing, along with Tom, the background and federal state commitments. So, Will, if you could take it to the next slide, we will start there. So first, I would like to share a bit of history on the federal commitment in relation to this water supply replacement study. In September of 2020, we, as federal agencies, prepared an environmental impact statement, record of decision, and biological opinions on Columbia River system operations. The agencies that were involved in that included Reclamation, Bonneville Power Administration, the Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife Service, and NOAA Fisheries. That EIS and record of decision did include a variety of alternatives for the system. The preferred alternative did not include breach of the 4 lower Snake River dams that are operated by the Corps of Engineers, and lawsuits were filed against the federal agencies related to this and other issues. The agencies and plaintiffs did enter a mediated process through which an agreement was reached on December 14th of last year. The court granted a litigation stay of 5 to 10 years in February. The agreement that we made included federal commitments to evaluate how to address impacts of dam breach should it be authorized by Congress. Specific to water supplies in this study, this slide quotes Reclamation's commitment to fund a water supply replacement study that would address impacts to irrigation, municipal, and industrial withdrawals affected by potential dam breach. We are performing this study in partnership with the Washington Department of Ecology, as Tom will discuss in the next slide, and the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service will also serve in a review capacity. We do also recognize that the pools of the 4 lower Snake River dams cover eastern Washington, but there's also a portion of northern Idaho covered in that, and that will be covered as well in this study. Reclamation is committed to completing the analysis by the end of this year, when we will have a draft report ready for stakeholder review. This is a tight timeline, and we appreciate the Jacobs team and the work that they are doing and will do in the near future to complete the study. This work is being funded under the bipartisan infrastructure law through the Aquatic Ecosystems Restoration Program. I will now turn it over to Tom Tebb to discuss the state of Washington's commitment and our partnership.
Thank you, Roland, and good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to provide a little background on the state's enrollment and engagement in this process. The Department of Ecology, as instructed by the state legislature through the passage of the 23-25 operating budget, was directed to conduct an analysis of water use for irrigation under the potential scenario of the lower Snake River Dam removal. The study was to identify cost-effective options for continued irrigation at current amounts and with existing water rights, and to provide cost estimates for any necessary irrigation system upgrades required to continue irrigation from the lower Snake River. The proviso provided $250,000 for the first year of the biennium, and an additional $250,000 for the second year as may be needed to conduct and conclude the analysis. As Roland mentioned, the U.S. government entered into a mediated agreement in mid-December of last year, and that really prompted the Department of Ecology's Office of Columbia River to pause its solicitation process that it had initiated, and to, in consultations with ecology leadership in the governor's office, to consider entering into a partnership to co-study or jointly conduct a study of water supply impacts associated with the potential removal of the Lower Snake River dams. This opportunity provided us also to broaden the scope of the study to include, as Roland had mentioned, municipal and industrial impacts as well. So we're grateful for that. We signed a memorandum of agreement with the Bureau in February of 2024 of this year, and we are in the process of conducting that study. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And if we can advance to the next slide, please, Will. First of all, I've seen a few other people join as we've done this introductory material, and I wanted to thank all of you for taking your time with us this afternoon and evening. We appreciated the participation we had on Tuesday and look forward also to the discussion we'll have today. So thank you again for joining us this evening. So in the meeting that we held on Tuesday, we had a few questions related to other current benefits of the Lower Snake River dams. And so we did add this slide for tonight. In the December 2023 agreement, the parties recognized potential dam breach and Lower Snake River restoration would affect more uses on the Lower Snake River than just water supply. As a result, the U.S. government did commit to studies beyond this water supply replacement study. On the screen, you see these three primary studies listed. First, regional energy needs planning, which is being led by the Department of Energy. Recreational analysis being led by the Army Corps of Engineers. And then the transportation infrastructure analysis, also led by the Corps of Engineers. While this meeting focuses only on the water supply replacement study, and we won't be covering these other efforts today, we do want to share with you that the other agencies are working on them, since many of you likely have interest beyond just water supply issues. And in the questions and answers, we won't be able to discuss these other efforts, but we recognize they are also being conducted and wanted to make sure you are aware of that. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to quickly go over the study activities to date, the things we have done on the federal side to come to this point. As discussed, we entered into a formal agreement with Ecology to co-sponsor the study. We did compete this project with consultants, and we have awarded the contract to the Jacobs team on April 26th. We have also conducted tribal orientation sessions and invited tribes to consult on the study. And then finally, as you are aware, we made a public announcement of the info sessions on June 14th. Now, as I turn it over to Ron Ferringer, who leads the consultant team, I will remind you that if you have questions for us to address at the end of the presentation, please email them to Michael Coffey at mcoffey@usbr.gov. And now I'll turn it over to you, Ron.
Thanks, Roland. Go ahead and slide on to the next slide, please. Yes, my name is Ron Ferringer, and I'm with the Jacobs Engineering Group, and I'm the project manager for the consultant team that is helping Reclamation and Ecology on this study. I wanted to go ahead and provide just a brief introduction of who's on the team overall. This is not going to be a detailed rundown of who's exactly doing what, but I really want to just point out that this is an integrated consultant team of experts working on this really important and really fast-paced study. We have folks specializing in all the important elements like public involvement and facilitation, water rights, groundwater, river diversions and irrigation conveyance facilities, power supply and transmission, cost estimating and economic analysis, and several other areas as well. So on our team is NHC, Aspect, AECOM, Green Economics, and QRS, or Quadrant River Structures. Please advance to the next slide. Here I wanted to kind of show just the overall study area, stretching from southeast Washington, kind of where the Snake River runs into the Columbia, and then on into parts of Idaho there. We're, as has been mentioned, we're focusing on Ice Harbor, Lower Monumental, Little Goose, and Lower Granite dams as those potential to be breached. Broadly speaking, the study intends to evaluate the potential impacts on water supply in the event one or more of those dams were to be breached. And the study will include an analysis of alternatives for providing replacement, irrigation, municipal, and industrial water supplies, or M&I. Also of note, we are going to be looking a little bit, and I'll get into that shortly, effects in the McNary Pool below Ice Harbor, specifically related to potential sediment problems. Next slide, please. If one or more of the lower Snake dams were to be breached, the reservoirs and the groundwater that provide access to water in the areas surrounding the dams could be lowered by upwards of 100 feet. And then the river will look a lot different in a free-flowing state, of course. So we're going to investigate water availability, given seasonal flow variations and given the future climate change projections that we're going to be looking at. We're going to quantify economic benefits associated with water supply for irrigation and M&I uses. And the study will also investigate potential other sources of water that could be used for replacement, and then develop alternative solutions for replacing water supplies that could be impacted. A key part of this effort is going to include that development of pre-feasibility level designs and costs for construction for these selected alternatives. And we're also going to be looking at implementation issues that address how water supply would be handled during a multi-year process of transitioning to new water supply, including sediment in the river moving around for at least a while, and then phasing of construction. Next slide, please. The first part of our study includes what we're here doing today with public information sessions. We've had some tribal information sessions as well. And then there are going to be 4 study sections that address water supply, water availability, strategies for replacement, and analysis of implementation issues. And then as all that is completed, we'll be doing all the requisite reporting. Overall, the study is intended to fulfill one of the several commitments made by the government on December 14th, 2023 in the agreement to stay litigation on the Columbia River System Operations, or CRSO. In accordance with that agreement, known as the Resilient Columbia Basin Agreement, a public draft report is planned for the end of this calendar year, as Roland mentioned a couple minutes ago. This is a really relatively short time frame for a really complex study, which informs some of the milestone dates that you see here on this slide. And then over the next several slides, we're going to discuss in more detail how each section of the study is currently planned. Next slide, please. Study section 1 is an analysis of the current water supply. It's a lot of work involving collecting a significant amount of data on water rights, geospatial data, and other types of information to understand surface water and groundwater use in the study area, agricultural lands that are irrigated with the water, and recent crop patterns within those acreages. That data will be combined and validated and augmented as needed to help us with the analysis. And then we'll also be conducting in-person and on-site interviews of various types of water users to ground truth the information. A key outcome of the study will be an analysis of any potential changes to the economic benefits. Next slide, please. Study section 2 is water availability analysis. So in study section 1, we talked about water use. And here we'll be looking into water availability. It involves understanding both surface and groundwater resources availability. And it's essential that we understand it not just for current conditions and existing hydro regulation rules and operations, but also to coincide with future climate predictions. So our team will use the best available science and methods to analyze not only how flows could vary during the short term in a potentially free-flowing river, but also how natural flows are likely to vary from year to year. This will help us estimate long-term water availability and look at future climate projections. And then it'll also help us to gain a better understanding of potential impacts to groundwater wells in the study area. Next slide, please. Study section 3 evaluates potential solutions for water supply replacement. We are looking at options to replace water supply supported by existing water rights. So the Jacobs team is going to think creatively and develop a list of potential water replacement alternatives, but also draw upon work documented in other previous studies performed by others. The list of options that we come up with, which will be quite large, will be workshopped with technical experts on our team, Reclamation and Ecology, and we're going to converge on a shorter list of alternatives that we can then advance for pre-feasibility level designs and cost estimating. These designs at this stage of a study and these estimates will be high level. They're not going to be overly detailed, and they're not going to be feasibility level yet or decisional. Potential alternatives could include things like new intakes and booster or pump stations at individual diversions, one or more consolidated pump stations, a consolidated diversion near the present day lower Granite pool and gravity distribution systems to the existing places of use, potentially transitioning to groundwater, potentially taking some irrigated lands out of production with a partial buyout. And then in general, I'll say that the focus is definitely on the lower Snake River, but in order to be creative and complete, we'll also look for other potential water sources to mitigate these effects. Next slide, please. Study section 4 is an identification focusing on that transitionary period during a potential breaching process. We will identify and analyze and then describe solutions for potential challenges with replacing or modifying the existing infrastructure for water supply. And this is going to help us outline issues for future analyses of impacts and also inform potential future evaluations of decision-making down the road if the study transitions to other steps in the future. So one key issue that's been identified from past and ongoing work is engineering analysis of the transition from current conditions to the potential free-flowing river condition, including how water supply needs to be met during that transition. It's likely to be a multi-year process, as mentioned a little bit ago, for the new water supply infrastructure to be constructed. The analysis is going to include looking at construction sequencing that could be needed to make that transitionary period go smoother. There are also numerous considerations to include and accommodate here, including potential impact to irrigated agriculture and other landowners. Then talking about the sediment for a minute, concerns and benefits surrounding the movement and transport of sediment is a crucial issue that we know a lot of folks have in their mind. It'll be addressed in this section of the study, particularly with respect to potential impacts to water users in the McNary Pool. We don't anticipate the study is going to include high-end predictive sediment modeling, but instead we want to build on and expand the existing body of work, including development of an initial concept model, compiling and synthesizing that available information that we have in our gathering, and then developing some sediment management alternatives. The task also includes an analytical approach and framework for a future NEPA analysis by resource, including water rights. This sets the stage for future environmental compliance work that would be required prior to any federal action, and future assessment of cultural resources and tribal issues associated with implementing one of these solutions. Next slide, please. We recognize that there are many completed and many ongoing efforts related to this study, and we plan to use these data sources and build on them to achieve the objectives of our study. Shown on the screen here are little snips of several of those, just a subset of some of the more widely known studies dating back more than 20 years, including the Corps of Engineers Lower Snake Juvenile Salmon Migration Feasibility Study from 2002, the Joint Federal Agency CRSO FEIS from 2020, the Phase 2 report from the Columbia Basin Partnership Task Force of the Marine Fisheries Advisory Committee from October of 2020, the Lower Snake River Dam's Benefit Replacement Report that was commissioned by Senator Murray and Governor Inslee, various technical memoranda and conceptual analysis that were developed by the Bureau of Reclamation and other agencies, and an analysis completed by the Columbia Snake River Irrigators Association in 2023 and early 2024. Next slide, please. So now I wanted to kind of briefly present what we're working on right now. Actively, we're currently still assembling large amounts of water rights, geospatial, and other data from previous studies and existing water rights databases and similar sources. We're validating and augmenting those data sets as we need to finish or to proceed with the analysis. Shortly, we're going to be conducting water user interviews to gather valuable insight and validate the information we've been seeing in the existing sources that I was talking about. These interviews are going to be held with a range of large to small irrigators, tribal water users, and municipal and industrial water users. And we're encouraging folks, if they have information that would be important for the evaluation, to please let us know. At this point, I'm going to hand it back to Roland.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for that presentation and for the work of your team doing all this technical work in relation to this study. As we close out the presentation, I wanted to remind you, all our attendees here, of the engagement opportunities we have built into the plan for this study. It's been mentioned before, but we wanted to make sure that you were aware of those. So first, this week, Tuesday and today, we are having the tribal and public information sessions. Again, we appreciate your participation. As the consultant team prepares the document, they will be reaching out out in the field with people who use the water provided through the Lower Snake River system. Then in late 2024, early 2025, that will be the next chance to actually look at the report, review that report. As we release the document, the draft document, in late 2024. And then we will have public information sessions on the completed study at this draft level. So you will be able to see the work that has been done and be able to talk in person with the agencies as well as the consultant team. We are planning a live in-person session in the Tri-Cities area, and then one will be in the Lewiston area. So you can look forward to that. And as I mentioned, then there will be the opportunity to review the draft document in early 2025. That will be conducted concurrently with independent peer review, which is based on Bureau of Reclamation policy for studies of this nature. We will be conducting that to make sure we have good, key, and sound technical information here. And then following those engagement opportunities, we plan on releasing the final report mid-2025. So we look forward to the study being performed, the work by the contractors, and then these engagement opportunities later this year and into early 2025. So now I will turn it over to Cynthia from the consultant team to moderate our questions.
Great. Thanks, Roland, and thanks, Tom and Ron, for the presentation today. For those of you that might have joined us a few minutes late for the meeting today, the way we are taking questions is through email to Michael Coffey there at Reclamation. Michael's email is showing on the screen. Well, it was showing on the screen, yeah. And it's also there in the chat a couple of times. So it's mcoffey at USBR, so that's MCOFFEY at usbr.gov. And so if you have a question for the team today, please email it to Michael. We won't be taking verbal questions or questions through the chat. So Michael, do we have any questions?
Yes, Cynthia, we have several. And just a reminder that this is a question and answer session. Any comments, opinions, materials that you would like to submit at the end of this slide presentation, we do have the email address where those are to be sent. So for now, we will get started with questions. And so there are, I have several questions from let's see, Ann Urabar with the state of Idaho. The first question is, the study area includes portions of the state of Idaho, and this action affects Idaho water users. Why was the state of Idaho not included in the scoping of this study?
Roland, I think that one probably goes to you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you're correct with the question that those impacts would extend up into the state of Idaho, and appreciate that question. We have asked the consultant team to reach out within state of Idaho to cover those water uses that could be affected there. We have informed Idaho Department of Water Resources, Idaho Water Resource Board, and the Office of Species Conservation of this study and shared information related to that. We also are looking, we've identified some contacts up in the Lewiston area, and we have asked the consultants to place as much emphasis on users in the state of Idaho as in the state of Washington. So we do want this to be a complete study and are working in that fashion.
Thank you. All right, Michael, did we have a second question there?
Yes, we have several, and I'm not sure how you all would like to handle these, but she is also asking for specific names of the people within the various state of Idaho departments that you have contacted. Would it be easier for us to just email her a list of the specific individuals within the organizations that we've already reached out to?
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I can just respond to that also as I'm leading the water user interviews and we are just right now, in fact, compiling the list of folks to reach out to, and we'll be starting that process here, likely as soon as tomorrow or early next week. So we'll have a much better idea at that point about who exactly we plan to be talking with. There have been, I'm sure, many informal conversations leading up to the scoping of the study and its initiation. But yeah, Michael, I think that's probably the best approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe I will add just one thing there. If the questioner has a specific targets that would have good information to inform this study, we certainly encourage you to send that information along. We want to be as complete as we can, not leave anyone out. And one of the things I worry about in something like this is that we're going to miss someone, and that certainly is not our intent. So any of those contacts folks can share, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yes,
absolutely.
And to echo that, we will provide you and with information that the names of the folks that we actually have already done some outreach to. Okay, let's see. Also, another question from her. A statement was made at the June 25th public meeting that you intend to study the effects of Idaho water use as far as the reach of the lower Granite pool. Can you please explain in more detail the geographic scope of the area in Idaho that will be covered by the study?
Yeah, so I'll direct this one to Ron and just kind of lead in that we are still kind of evaluating the exact extent of the study area, but starting with the reclamation previously defined potential impact area. Ron?
Yeah, and as Cynthia said, this is still a work in progress, but the scope does extend to the influence of the lower Granite pool. So the lower Granite pool, of course, is formed by the dam in its present state. If that were to be breached or something, there would be, folks affected that are influenced by the pool as it currently stands now that would be impacted. So we have to understand there are elements such as sediment and groundwater levels and things that may have an impact as well or an effect as well. So again, it's a work in progress. I can't give you a definitive answer there, but we're working on it right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is, to what extent will the scope of the study evaluate the impacts on groundwater use in Idaho?
So the study does include groundwater, both as an impact and a potential source. And Ron, I'll let you describe that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's to the same degree that we're assessing impacts in Washington. It's kind of like what I answered a minute ago. One thing we know is previous studies have made the assumption of about a mile distance from the river. We're gathering data on all those water uses, and groundwater uses, and trying to confirm that assumption right now. Groundwater modeling is being done as part of this study. And, again, trying to determine with all the different work that we're doing, who in fact would be affected if the dam were to be breached and the water in the river were to go, drop basically. So the groundwater modeling is going to be using the regional groundwater model that is out there and building from that as best we can in short order here. And like I said before, this is still a work in progress. So.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
And so, thanks, Ron. So in question 6, she does call out specific aquifers. It's the Grand Ron and the Wanapum aquifers that are affected by water levels in the Snake and Clearwater rivers.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent will the study consider the effects of the actions on these aquifers?
And those are 2 of the major Columbia River basalt aquifers. which are part of what the study is looking at. Ron, did you want to add any detail to that?
I don't think we can add much more than what I've already said there. Those are definitely going to be looked at in just as I've described. And I can't give you more right now until we finish that step of the work. And we're going through and developing a bunch of GIS information and doing these ongoing modeling efforts and so forth, and relying on groundwater models to inform the potential impacts to those aquifers. So it's just a work in progress.
Yeah, thanks, Ron, for that. Yeah, because her question did specifically call out those two aquifers, I did want to bring it up.
Thank you.
And I apologize, I mispronounced her name. It's Ybar. I knew I was going to mutilate it, and I did it. So apologies, Anne. Okay, so her seventh question is the scope of the study appears. Let's see. The scope of the study appears to be limited to irrigation, industrial, and municipal uses. Are you aware that there are other uses of water in Idaho that may be affected by this action, including domestic and stock water uses? Will the study include an assessment of the water replacement needs for these uses?
Yeah, we did have this question on Tuesday as well, and yeah, the domestic and stock water are included in the types of uses that we're looking at. Ron, did you want to add any more detail to that?
Our goal is to quantify and describe all water uses that we can in the report. So that includes irrigation, M&I, stock water, domestic, and others. And we're trying to use lots of various methods to capture permit exempt uses and focus on existing water rights that are out there.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will just add that if, just as in this case, if anybody, in attendance today, feels like there's some water use that we may be missing, we really welcome that input, probably through the comment email that's on the website. But we really are not, wanting to leave no stone unturned in terms of understanding who might be affected by a potential action here. Michael, question? Next question.
Yeah, and this is her last question. Are you aware that the Grand Ronde and Wanapum aquifers in Idaho are declining, and that multiple entities, including the Lewiston Orchards Exchange Project and the City of Moscow, are looking to the Snake and Clearwater rivers as surface water replacement sources for groundwater out of these aquifers? Will the study provide any analysis of the actions effect on these projects?
Well, I'll take that since I'm leading the water user interviews and data collection there. And those definitely are entities that we will be talking with. So I think the answer is very much yes.
Great. She does have a number of comments, and she also has some studies that she has attached to the email, and I will be forwarding those on to the email address where we are taking comments.
Perfect. That's great. That's great.
Okay. All righty. So the next question comes from Ken Thompson. What will be the best way to keep informed on the status of related studies, such as the effects of dam removal on aquatic life?
Roland, I'll direct that one to you.
Yes, as I mentioned, other studies are being prepared by other federal agencies, and they would have their own outreach on those. And in relation to potential impacts like on aquatic life, I thank you for raising the issue. If you have other issues that you think the federal agencies may need to consider beyond what I shared with on that previous slide, if you could share those considerations and those items, we would appreciate that on the federal team.
Thank you. Okay, Michael, next question.
Okay, another last name that I am probably going to mutilate. Luke Antonich. He is asking, what is the study's plan for reaching out to local communities to find out the impacts of breaching dams? From whom will you gather this information? And data on water supply must be more granular than can be gathered from water rights.
Yeah, I'm going to take that question again since I'll be doing that, leading that outreach. We will be talking directly with municipal water users along the river that are either drawing from the river directly or from groundwater that would be in connection with the river. So that outreach will be direct with those water users. And again, we just welcome any input on who those organizations and specific people contacts would be. That would definitely help make sure that our data collection effort is as comprehensive and accurate as possible, which is what we're seeking. Michael, next question. I'll just remind folks, in case you just joined, that we're taking questions by submitting those questions through email to Michael Coffey. That's mcoffey, MCOFFEY @usbr.gov, shown on the screen there. And Michael is reading off those questions in the order received. So appreciate you following that process and helping us keep this orderly today, and so that we can answer them in order. Michael.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah.
So this one is from Andy Barth. What entities will be included in the water interviews? And I think we've kind of gone over that, but I think it's a good point to drive home.
Yeah, sure. So I can say a little bit more about that. So we have 3 general use groups that we're targeting. The first is irrigation, and we are seeking to talk to both large irrigators and small irrigators. And through that group, we are seeking to distribute our interviewees across the entire study area. So distribute those across, the whole potential impact area, talk with and understand the current systems and future system needs for a diversity of crop types, or producer types, whether that's livestock or crop production, and also a diversity of system types. So, whether you're a direct withdrawal from the river or using groundwater, or probably a combination of those two also exists. So really trying to get, a diversity of types of agricultural producers. Then the second category is municipal users, and that may include some of the larger cities such as Lewiston, who reside along the river and rely on it. There are very certainly small communities as well. Some of those may be type A, but there may also be group B users, municipal users, as well as permit exempt well users. So we're really trying to understand for all of those groups within that municipal category. And then the third category is industrial, and that would be, any industrial user along the river who has a water right or is using. I assume there could be potentially permit exempt well industrial uses as well, either from surface water or groundwater. So that sort of gives you a little bit more detail around those water user direct interviews that we're hoping to conduct here and in July, actually coming right up.
Yeah, I'm not sure where June went. It just disappeared.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. The next question is from Joy Vega. What Idaho agencies, municipalities, etc., will be consulted with in relation to the study? And the second part of her question is, which tribes have been invited to consult?
Yeah, so I'm going to turn to Roland and probably Tom as well to say a few things about the agencies and tribes that have been consulted. And I think we don't have Tyson on the line, but I can cover that question as well. I think Jessica is on the line as well, to fill in any gaps there. But we on the consultant side have started reaching out to some of the Idaho agencies and industry groups as well, to begin kind of networking out to, hear and get connected with all of the folks that we should be talking with. And Roland, maybe I'll ask you to say a few more things about I know you've talked with a few agency contacts and other industry groups, just in preparation for this study.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. And I believe I addressed a very similar question earlier on. So again, the Department of Water Resources, Idaho Water Resource Board, and Office of Species Conservation. And that's not intended to be an exhaustive list. So we appreciate our consultant team reaching out to others as well. And one of the reasons we're having these meetings is to make sure we're not missing someone, as I mentioned. So I appreciate all the input people would have on this. And then I'll mention in relation to the tribes, we've been focused on the tribes that are around or near the Lower Snake River facilities that could have interest there. So the primary tribal contacts have been the CRITFIC, Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission tribes, and then the Yukut tribes, Upper Columbia United tribes. So those have been our primary contacts on the tribes for reaching out. And I'll ask if Tom might have any more to add on that.
No, I would just add that we've had one tribal informational session, and we're planning, to continue to do outreach to reach some of those folks who we were not able to communicate with earlier this week. So more to come.
Great, thank you. Okay, Michael, next question.
Yes, this question is from Miles Johnson. He says, can you describe the economic study in more detail? What is the scope and purpose? What subcontractor is doing it?
Okay, yeah, good question. And we do have a significant portion of the study that is focused on the economic analysis. And I'll let Ron say a bit more detail around that.
Okay. So our subconsultant Green Economics is going to be part of this, as to provide a lot of that expertise. We also are going to get a lot of support and participation in that, courtesy of Devin Stoker, that's on our team and on this call. I thought maybe I'd hand the baton to him for a second to speak to it just a little bit. Devin?
Yeah, hi everyone. Devin Stoker with the Jacobs team here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of detail we can share on the economics in terms of results. We still have yet to do the work. But in terms of what we're hoping to look at, our scope includes essentially trying to and leveraging the existing body of work, as Ron alluded to earlier, quantify the economic benefits that are tied directly to the use of water supply in the area. So that's, direct use benefits as a result of use of water supply there. In a large part, that's irrigation benefits. There are also M&I benefits. As you probably know. So there's a variety of ways of doing that, a variety of different approaches. The availability of data going into that analysis might also vary. But at the core, we're going to be looking at how those benefits might change into the future, both under the existing conditions as they stand today, as well as that potential future, free-flowing river situation. So, looking at, again, those direct use benefits for water supply reliability and the things that depend on that water supply, and those on-farm costs and employment and things that relate directly to that.
Is it fair to say that the economic analysis will follow Reclamation's manual standards or directives and standards, I would assume, so to be in compliance with Reclamation approach to this kind of work?
Yeah, that's right. Reclamation does have fairly specific guidelines when it comes to following economic benefits estimations, and we're gonna primarily follow those, with this being a kind of a reclamation planning study. It is a little bit unique in that it's not part of an authorized reclamation project, capital P project. Roland, please feel free to jump in if I misstate something there, but yeah, I think that's fair to say, Tom.
Thanks for that answer. I will add, yes, we do have the reclamation requirements for the economic analysis, but we also recognize there are a variety of ways of doing economic analysis. So we want to make sure that we cover, we have a comprehensive analysis of economics as well, as we go through this study.
All right, thank you all. All right, Michael, next question.
All right. This one is from Scott Corbett. Do you plan to contact the Port of Lewiston, Idaho's only seaport, as part of the study?
I would answer that definitely yes. I think we can go to the next question.
Yep, sounds good. This one is from Charles Pottinger. It says, has the study considered facts showing that salmon and steelhead are benefiting from proper dam operations? Such facts exist and are available.
So maybe I'll just make the overview comment that this is a water supply replacement study. So it is not looking at, in general, benefits or impacts associated with dam breach itself. And does anybody on the team want to add anything to that response? That would not be within the scope of this study.
That's
I will. Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Roland.
I will add that one of the things we think about in relation to replacement water supplies, it would be effects like of intakes on salmon or other fish populations. So there are some ties here, but the general benefits to the salmon, the larger questions about salmon and the dams, those are not covered in relation to this study in particular.
What I can add, Cynthia, I can add that, as Roland alluded to a second ago, intake preliminary layouts of new intake facilities and so forth on a future free-flowing river potentially. We're going to include fish screens. We're going to include consideration of protecting fish in that capacity. So yeah, we're accounting for salmon and steelhead and other fisheries. Just we're not looking at that part of it that goes beyond protecting them by the new intake facilities in this study.
Thank you all.
Great.
Okay, next question.
Yeah. So this question is from Thomas Starkey Owens. Will this study include evaluating operations from Grand Coulee? If so, have the U.S. EPA's TMLD load allocations for temperatures been taken into account? Specifically, will this water replacement study evaluate how Grand Coulee will meet applicable water quality criteria, including the TMDL load allocations?
So similar to the previous question, I'll just kind of kick this off and then others can add in a little bit more detail if you'd like. But this study is not focused on those larger questions. This study is focused on just the technical assessment of if the lower Snake River dams were breached, what would be the impact to current water supplies, and what would be available potential solutions to replace that water supply. So it is not looking at other, Columbia River operations or some of those larger topics. Not sure what we're looking at on the screen here, but does anybody want to add to that response? Roland, go ahead.
Thank you. I will add that in the commitments that the federal agencies made in the December 14 agreement, Reclamation does have a commitment to prepare a water quality attainment plan for Grand Coulee in accordance with 401 certifications of the NPDES permit. So it's not covered as part of this study, but that is something that we have committed to do, is prepare that water quality attainment plan.
Great, thank you. Okay, Michael, next question.
Actually, that was the last question that I've received.
Oh no, really?
Yes.
We weren't interesting enough, you guys.
I guess not.
Oh, all right. Well, so we'll maybe just give folks, another minute. If a question has occurred to you, please email that to Michael at the address there that's shown in the chat. That's mcoffey@usbr.gov. mcoffey is MCOFFEY@usbr.gov. I think I can probably say that in my sleep now, Michael.
Probably can.
But yeah, so if folks have questions here, we'll just leave the meeting open for another couple of minutes, just to give you a chance to type those out and send them on in. And we still have some time. We had allocated an hour and a half for this meeting, so we have time to respond to other questions. And maybe I'll also just mention, while we have a minute here, that please use that other email, the one that's on the website. Maybe we can go to the last slide there and show that on the screen. There's an email here on the second yellow line on this slide. That's the email that we'll be monitoring through our larger project team here for comments and suggestions and ideas or thoughts that you have that you want to get to us. That's the email that we'll be using to collect that information. And feel free to use that to provide us with your thoughts and recommendations and ideas and water users that we may not, or considerations that we may not be thinking of otherwise. Here's also the website on the screen where you can find a frequently asked questions document. You can find the PowerPoint from today's public meeting. And I'm sure we'll be populating that with additional information as time goes by. Particularly on the frequently asked questions document, as we get more questions and find that there are common themes that people are wondering about, we'll be updating that frequently asked questions document. So check back and see if there's any new information there if you're wondering about something. So as I've been blabbering on, Michael, have we gotten any additional questions?
No additional questions, but I would also say that, if you see the website really hasn't changed much, please feel free to email that address and we will get back to you and just say, oh yeah, well, not too much has been happening, or yeah, it looks like we're going to be, engaging the public. We don't mean to go dark on you. And so if you're just not sure what's going on, please email us as well.
Yeah. There are real people doing this study, and we are all trying our very best to do the best job that we can here. And so we don't want there to be barriers to getting the most complete and on the ground information and recommendations and thoughts from you. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody so much for coming and taking the time to come to this information session today. And Roland, I think I'll turn it over to you and Tom just to maybe close this out.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I also want to thank all of you for participating in the meeting today. The information, I will say, that's been shared through questions is important information to us, and I appreciate you asking hard questions that make us think and that help us to strengthen the study. One of my main purposes and benefits that I see in conducting these is it's sharing the information, but also triggering people to share information that could really help us have a more robust study and robust results. So thank you for your participation, your contributions, as well as those who will be subjects of interviews by our consultant team. I want to thank you in advance as well. I'll just stress that this is a study to develop sound technical information. It does not include decision making, but it will inform future decision making. So we do want it to be a sound study and a sound analysis that we can all rely on, and we can all trust the information that's in there. And so that's our goal. And we appreciate your help in getting to that goal. And just again, on behalf of Bureau of Reclamation, I want to thank you all for taking time with us today and participating in this meeting with us. We greatly appreciate it. And now I'll hand it over to Tom.
Thank you, Roland. And just let me share that on behalf of the Department of Ecology, we also appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. And I want to thank Cynthia and Michael and Ron and the entire team that kind of supports this work. We are working hard to make sure that we get all of the information out, that we can make the best technical study possible, as Roland said, for future decision making. So thank you very much for your time, and there'll be more to come later this year, and we look forward to those engagements.
Wonderful. We are adjourned. Thank you.